but it can be polyed up and polyrhythmical, and it's also kind of just a running commentary, as I said before. Yeah, it's kind of an improv, and that is the groove. It's not, rather than, and I think in like 2 and 4 bar phrases when I'm playing funk anyway, and so I kind of do that. I mean, I made plenty of records that nobody knows I'm on where I have to play just the 2 and 4. So I don't mind doing that. It wasn't a reaction to that. It was just like he'd asked me, "Don't you have this kind of special way of playing?" And Paul and I have been playing like this together for a long time. We didn't even discuss it or plan it. We just played that way because we were all playing jazz gigs before. When he picked up the electric bass over at the house one time, that's exactly what we played. It was like we were born to do this or something. We just came right out. No talking about it, no figuring anything out. It was just boom, And we both were shocked, like, man, that was deep.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's and when Herbie heard it, we played with him we didn't even play 20 minutes. We played 15 minutes, and he just stood up real fast and said, "You got the gig if you want it." Now, interestingly enough, I really wanted the gig because it was Paul, my dear friend, and Herbie Hancock, and I knew it was going to be an exciting adventure traveling the world. At the same time, I had a good living. I was making a good living playing jazz in the Bay Area. I played with Bobby Hutcherson and Woody Shaw and Goraldi and so many great cats, Julian Priester and Eddie Henderson and Pharoah Sanders and da-da-da.
Those are all
and I was like making better money in town doing that, believe it or not. I was doing so much of it that I could going on the road with Herbie Hancock. It would have actually been a cut and pay at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, I knew I was going to get typecast as some type of a funk drummer, not a pocket James Brown guy, but some kind of a jazzy funk drummer because everybody was going to hear the record because it's Herbie Hancock. And I didn't want that to interfere with my straight-ahead jazz career, which I was putting all my energy in. The funk thing was something that I did when I was younger, and I do it on the side to make money. And although I really liked it, I was in the clubs every night playing jazz, and I never really listened to too many funk records. I just listened to jazz all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I did listen to Sex Machine live in Augusta.
The James Brown record, yeah.
Yeah. With Clyde and Javo. I listened to it. I wore about 10 copies out. I listened to all the sax stuff. I listened to, I dug Rufus Thomas. I dug, Otis. In those days, there was AM radio in the car was almost always what they called in those days soul music, and it was on all day. So you'd hear it you anytime you want, you could get your feel. And it was the closest thing to jazz because it had the blues element under it. I mean, I didn't care for rock. In fact, I kind of hated it. I got to like rock a little bit later when I played with Brand X, but in those days it was either, I liked Cannonball Adderley and all of that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I like that, and blues and what have you. So, anyway, what were we talking about?
Yeah, we're talking about your time with Herbie. You're taking a pay cut to play with Herbie.
Yeah, so I told him, I said, I'm kind of, I know this is going to sound, I don't want to sound ungrateful or weird or snobbish or something, but it's going to screw up my jazz career, which is, I told him, I know you don't know me that well, but I'm doing good here in town, and I'm swinging,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm making bank, and I'm playing jazz. I'm not playing any funk unless I want to, unless it's fun. Want my girlfriend to go to one of her functions and bring a little funk band, that's cool. But I never thought about 5 nights a week, So he's like, well, okay, here's what you can do. He goes, like, if you come with me, everybody's going to hear about you. We're going to play some good stuff. And you can always play jazz later. He said, if you stay here, you'll probably work the rest of your life and do good. There's no doubt you're doing okay. But maybe nobody will ever hear of you, or you won't be a well-known cat. This will put you in the books.
He was right.
And he was right. And so I thought about that for a minute. And plus, he was such a nice cat, I couldn't help but want to just get to know him more. He was fun.
Mm-hmm.
He was fun to talk to. He was fun to be with, and he had a sense of humor, and he was playful, and he liked to goof around. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
He wasn't one of these hardcore band leaders that was grumpy and in a bad mood all the time and always talking about, just talking somebody doesn't swing and this guy don't swing and that guy. Herbie seemed to like people.
Yeah.
He had a good people thing, and I'm like, okay, I'm in. let's just do it. And besides, Paul, who I was living with, was like threatening to kill me if I didn't take the gig.
Well, let's play something from that version of the Headhunters. We'll play something from the album Flood that was only available in Japan for about 25 years, but now it's available here. We'll play Spanka Lee from Flood. We're talking to Mike Clark on the phone. This is the Headhunters from 1975. We'll be back to talk to Mike a little bit more in just a second. Mike Clark's on the phone with us. That was Herbie Hancock and the Headhunters, featuring Mike Clark from 1975, the Flood album. Boy, that's kind of a legendary album there, Mike. That's one that musicians have been talking about for years and years, and it was always like this holy grail of funk jazz for the longest time because nobody could get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was just like I remember reading Vinnie Colaiuta talking about it in Modern Drummer magazine as one of his favorite albums of all time, and I was like, well, how can I get this album? And finally, I was able to do it. About 10 years ago or so. But it's definitely as advertised.
You want me to tell you a little story about that album?
That would be great.
All right. This is kind of a good one. David Rubinson came to make this album live, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we played one night, and we made a great record of Flood. I thought it was great. Now, that's not the Flood you're hearing.
Oh.
So that was supposed to be it. Game over. We made it. The record sounded great. We went into the truck afterwards, and they had a big sound equipment thing in there, and we listened to it, and we were like, this is wonderful. We really did it. So that night, we all went to a big celebration in Japan and stayed up all night and drank too much and ate too much and partied all night in celebration of this great record we thought we made. So the next night, the band is really feeling, I'm not a great drinker, and I drank sake and Sapporo beers and one after another and did sushi, and we're having so much fun and acting important and thinking we're all this and that. Okay, the next night, I'll tell you, I'm straight up hungover. So is Paul, and everybody else is like almost green. Everybody's like, oh, why did we do that? So we get to the gig the next night. We figure, okay, well, I was young at the time, so I could play the gig and sleep it off the next day. I'll be fine. So anyway, we get to the gig, and there's a sound truck there. And we're like, what's that truck doing here? So David Rubinson says, I thought since it was only a few hundred miles from the last gig, I might as well record 2 nights. And I said to Herbie right then, I don't think this cat's really got too good radar, and we're hungover. If we play it, he might use this night. He won't know the difference, but I know the difference. And Herbie was like, well, he's the manager, he just went with it. That's the night he used.
Oh.
And it's a good record, but it's light compared to the first night. The first night was greater. Now, it's not like anybody had any more blowing technique or any innovative stuff. It's just that everything was lined up like to the nth degree.
Right.
It was crazy. And the sounds of the drums were different in the other hall.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the same stuff done much better with a different sound to it. And they were threatening to put this Flood out, the one I'm talking about, in about a year or so, but you never know with the economy and everything what will happen. But that's the one.
Yeah.
This one is like, to me, not as sharp as the other Flood, which nobody's ever heard yet.
Well, that's just astounding because it's such a great record. It's one of my all-time favorites. So that's such a big surprise. So
it's much more focused. The other one is much more focused, you know. And but anyway, c'est la vie. It worked. I mean, we had a residual of good feelings from the night before, so we were able to function, but trust me on this. As well, from my point of view, anyway, as an artist, it was nowhere near the first night. And I was, when you work with producers, not all, and business people and managers, they don't have the same hearing that we do.
Right.
So you're really and you're dealing with a guy that's got money and power. So right away, the music takes a back seat, even though I'm sure the guy thinks the music's taking the front seat, because he doesn't know the inner workings of it like those of us that play it. None of them do. Critics,